She doesn't come back because she loves you. She comes back because the silence you gave her exposed a truth she thought she'd never have to face. That you finally saw your own worth. And that scares her more than losing you. If you're watching this, there's a part of you that's still wondering what happened. 1 minute, she was all in, texting you first, planning the future, calling you her person. The next, cold, distant, suddenly busy, ghosting you, ignoring your messages like you never existed. And while you're sitting in silence trying to figure out what you did wrong, she's out there acting like nothing happened. But the moment you finally stop texting, stop explaining, stop chasing, that's when she comes back. You want to know why? Because women are addicted to control, not commitment. She didn't expect you to leave. She didn't expect you to stay silent. She thought you'd wait. And when you didn't, her ego collapsed. What she feels when you give her distance isn't regret. It's panic. Because now she's facing the one reality she tried to avoid. You're not hers anymore. You're not waiting. You're not watching. You're rebuilding. And here's the truth nobody tells you. This is your power. When you detach from the need for her to care, you break the leash. You stop being her emotional backup. You become the man she didn't prepare for. The one who chose his path over her potential. That's why she comes back. Not because she suddenly sees your worth, but because you finally acted like you did. This is what Stoicism teaches us. You control your response, not her actions. She pulls away, you stay composed. She ghosts, you grow. She tests your value, you show her with absence, not anger. Because the man who can walk away without burning the house down is the man she never forgets. If this hit you in the chest, it should, because this video isn't just about understanding her behavior. It's about ending the cycle for good. It's about choosing you, becoming unshakable, walking with purpose, speaking less, doing more, and understanding that distance isn't weakness. It's the weapon that exposes who was really there for you and who was just passing time. Comment, "I choose me," if you're ready to stop waiting, stop chasing, and finally start winning your life back. Number 1. Mystery triggers. Obsession. Most men make the fatal mistake of trying to be the open book, telling her what they're doing, where they're going, who they're becoming, all in the name of honesty and connection. But what they don't realize is, the second she can fully predict you, she no longer needs to understand you. You become simple, seen, safe, and once she's seen every chapter, she stops reading. It's not her fault entirely. It's how the human mind operates. Certainty is the enemy of attraction. And when a man becomes overly available, overly expressive, constantly texting, constantly reassuring, he kills curiosity. And when curiosity dies, so does her interest. Women don't obsess over men who are present every second. They obsess over the ones who vanish when they're expected to show up, the ones who don't explain why they disappeared and don't chase when she walks away. When a man pulls back, he forces her mind into overdrive. She starts thinking, questioning, wondering. What is he doing? Who is he with? Why hasn't he messaged me back? And it's in this silence that obsession is born. The less she knows, the more she wants to know. Her imagination starts writing stories far more powerful than any explanation you could have given. She checks your stories, reads your last messages again, searches for clues in your photos. She brings you up to her friends and casually drops your name to feel the reaction. And every unanswered question is fuel for her fixation. This isn't mind games. This is how the female brain processes intrigue. And if you don't believe that, look at the men she obsesses over. They're rarely the ones who stayed and poured out their hearts. They're the ones who left quietly and never looked back. The men she couldn't quite figure out. And that's the truth you need to accept. You don't win her by showing her every card. You win her by becoming a puzzle she can't solve. And no, This doesn't mean being emotionally unavailable or fake. It means being so focused on your life, your mission, your growth, that she is no longer the center of your universe. It means giving her access to your presence, but not your every move. You need to reclaim your identity as a man who doesn't explain every breath, who doesn't post every win, who doesn't need validation from her or anyone else. That's what creates gravity. And gravity doesn't chase, it pulls. She will come back not because of what you said, but because of everything you didn't, because you became rare. In a world of noise and constant connection, you became the silence she can't escape. So what do you do now? You stop sharing your whole day with someone who won't even text back. You stop giving emotional updates to someone who isn't emotionally invested. You build yourself, you train, you read, you elevate, you vanish into purpose. You don't need to be mysterious, you need to be intentional. And that alone makes you impossible to forget. Most men can't do this. They fold, they break the silence, they reach out just to check in. And in doing that, they shatter the very mystique that was pulling her back in. Don't be that man. Be the one who's so focused on becoming unrecognizable that by the time she reaches back out, she no longer even qualifies for access. That's real mystery. That's real obsession, and it only begins when you stop being predictable. And once you realize that mystery triggers obsession, that certainty kills attraction, that the less she knows about you, the more she wants to know, everything changes. This is where the shift happens, where emotion meets logic, and where men finally take control of their relationships, their peace, and their future. That's exactly why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, a powerful guide that gives you the mindset, tools, and daily practices to detach with purpose, reclaim your time, and rebuild yourself from the inside out. It answers the questions you've been too embarrassed to ask out loud. Why does she come back only when I stop caring? How do I stay grounded when she plays games? How do I never lose myself in a relationship again? It's linked in the comments. Yours forever once you download it. No subscriptions, no expiration. Just timeless, life-changing knowledge you can return to anytime you feel like slipping. If this video speaks to your soul, that book will become your playbook, and every man who reads it walks away transformed. Don't just survive heartbreak, outgrow it. Grab your copy now. Number 2, you break her ego loop. She doesn't miss you because she loved you. She misses you because you stopped feeding her ego, and most men can't stomach that truth. They want to believe that when she returns, it's out of affection. But what if I told you the only reason she's circling back is because you removed her mirror, because you stopped validating her identity? That's what your messages were doing, validating. That's what your consistency was, approval. And when you gave it freely without condition, you became the emotional ATM that she no longer respected. See, when you chase, when you beg, when you explain, you're not showing love. You're feeding her sense of control. She knows you'll reply. She knows you'll react. So she strings you along, not out of cruelty, but because it makes her feel powerful. And then, one day, you stop. You don't reply. You don't double text. You don't ask her if she's okay. You don't even watch her stories. And her ego, the one built on your constant pursuit, shatters. Now she's spiraling, wondering why the attention stopped. She thought you'd chase forever, but now the supply is gone, the mirror is gone, the control is gone, and suddenly she's not sure who she is without your reflection. That's when she returns, not out of guilt, not out of love, out of need. She needs to know she still matters, that she still owns space in your mind, that you're still available when she snaps her fingers. And this is where your test begins. Because most men fumble here. They confuse her return with reconciliation. They pick up where they left off. But the real power, the true shift, comes when you do nothing, when you don't reply, or better yet, when you respond without emotion, without attachment. Because now you are the one who decides if she qualifies. That's how you break the loop. You go from being her emotional lifeline to being her wake-up call, from the man who begged to the man who chooses. But to get here, you have to stop explaining your worth. Stop trying to prove that you're good enough. You were always good enough. She just didn't expect you to believe it. Apply this in your daily life. When someone pulls away, let them. When they ghost, disappear. When they breadcrumb, delete the trail. Stop trying to keep dead connections alive. Stop making excuses for her behavior. Stop letting your fear of loss keep you in places that don't value you. Start replacing her silence with discipline. Build a routine that doesn't depend on her texts. Fill your day with actions that honor your future, not memories of your past. Understand this. Her ego wants attention, but your evolution demands peace. Choose peace. The kind of peace that doesn't flinch when she reaches out. The kind of peace that doesn't care who she's with now. The kind of peace that says, I remember who I was before you, and I've become even better since. That's how you break the loop. That's how you take her power and make it yours. Number 3, distance feels like rejection. The moment you step away, without explanation, without apology, a new signal fires off in her mind. It's not confusion. It's not even curiosity. It's rejection. And that rejection doesn't just sting, it destabilizes her. Because most women, especially in today's dating culture, move through life assuming that access to you is permanent, that they can ignore your messages, breadcrumb you, flirt with other men in your face, and you'll still be there, patient, loyal, and waiting. She thinks your devotion is her birthright, so when it stops, when the validation dries up and your presence disappears completely, it doesn't just create space, it creates panic. She starts thinking, did he meet someone? Has he moved on? Was I not as important as I thought I was? This is not about love, it's about ego, and ego is fragile. The rejection she feels from your distance isn't about missing your laugh or your stories. It's about losing the certainty that she owned a part of your mind. You want proof? Think about every time you pulled back and she suddenly showed up again, acting like nothing happened. That's not love, that's ego preservation. That's her way of making sure she can still press the button and get a reaction. You were never supposed to stop orbiting her. You were never supposed to realize your own worth. That's what scares her. And this is exactly where most men collapse. The moment she reaches out again, even after ignoring them for weeks, they reply instantly, desperate for closure, for clarity, for reconnection. But what they don't realize is, the second they do that, they hand the power right back to her. She knows she can go cold, then hot, then cold again. And you'll stay on the hook. You become her emotional punching bag, her fallback, her backup plan. But when you stay silent, when you stay focused, when you don't even acknowledge her breadcrumb message, that rejection becomes real, permanent, and that's when she truly spirals. You want to flip this dynamic? Start understanding that not every message deserves a reply. Not every reconnection attempt deserves attention. Stop rewarding emotional inconsistency. Stop validating temporary effort. Let her sit in that rejection, not as punishment, but as reflection. Let her see what happens when you walk away with grace and never look back. And if she's the kind of woman who only comes back when you pull away, that's not love. That's manipulation. That's emotional economics. She's treating you like a backup investment, only checking in to make sure her portfolio is still diverse. Do you really want to be that man? Do you want to be the safety net she falls back on when the guys she actually wanted disappear? Or do you want to be the one who disappeared first and never returned? The one she regrets losing, not because of who you were, but because of who you became after you walked away. Understand this, rejection is powerful, but it only works if you don't break your silence, if you stay the course, if you use this time to build the version of yourself that even you respect. Because when she feels rejected and sees you thriving, that's not just rejection, that's regret. And regret hits harder than any breakup ever could. So embrace the rejection, use it, let it fuel your evolution, and never ever explain yourself again. Number 4, the contrast hits her hard. There's something she doesn't realize when she walks away from you, something she won't understand until it's far too late. It's called emotional contrast. It's the shock she feels when the man she took for granted is replaced by men who don't even come close. At first, she thinks freedom feels like an upgrade. She thinks flirting with new guys, getting more attention, and living unattached is a win. But slowly, reality creeps in. And what she thought was an escape becomes a trap of her own making. Because now she's surrounded by men who don't listen, who don't care, who don't ask questions, who treat her like a number, not a person. And then your memory starts haunting her. The way you listened, the way you noticed things without being told, the way you cared without needing praise. You were consistent, you were grounded, you were real. And now, in a sea of guys trying to impress her with filters, money, and weak lines, you stand out more than ever, even in your absence. That's emotional contrast. It's when her new reality fails to live up to the comfort she gave up. And here's what makes it brutal. She knows she can't recreate you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were genuine. And genuine men don't grow on trees. They're forged in pain, in solitude, in effort. And you're not just gone, you're evolving. You're becoming even more grounded, more successful, more focused. So now the contrast isn't just emotional, it's physical. She sees you leveling up while she's stuck repeating conversations with guys who can't hold her attention past 15 minutes. She tries to fake it, posts more, parties more, pretends she's happier. But every time her head hits the pillow, it's your name that echoes. Not because you were perfect, but because no one since has come close. You want to create this kind of contrast in real life. Don't talk about it. Don't try to make her jealous. Just outgrow her. Work in silence. Build a life so full, so rich, so intentional, that even if she came back tomorrow, you'd have to ask yourself if she even fits in it anymore. That's real contrast. It's not about punishing her. It's about evolving past her. About becoming a man whose presence can't be replaced and whose absence is felt like a void. Every man has this potential, but most waste it chasing women who never saw their value in the first place. You want to break the pattern? Start by treating your attention like currency. Don't give it to anyone who hasn't earned it. Don't explain your worth. Don't compete with her new options. Just become the option she regrets losing. And when she finally reaches back out, when the contrast becomes unbearable, don't answer to validate her pain. Let her feel it. Let her sit in it, because some lessons can't be taught. They can only be lived. And when she finally understands the value you held, it will be too late. And that's when the contrast hits hardest. Not when she realizes what she lost, but when she realizes you're not coming back to save her from it. Number 5, she starts comparing. She starts comparing not because she wants to, but because she can't help it. Because now, every man who enters her life is a distorted reflection of the one she lost. She begins seeing pieces of you in people who don't even come close to measuring up. In the beginning, the freedom felt euphoric. She thought the options would replace the connection. That the attention from new faces, the compliments from strangers, the validation from dating apps would distract her from your absence. But now she's bored. She's annoyed by their shallowness. She's irritated by how quickly the conversations die, how forced the laughs feel, how none of them understand her like you did, or even try to. She's scrolling through DMs from guys trying too hard, sending lines she's heard 1,000 times, asking questions they don't really care about. And for the first time in weeks, she starts thinking about you again, not because you said something, but because you stopped saying anything. That's when the real comparisons begin. She remembers how you noticed when something was off without her having to say a word. How your presence alone could make her feel grounded. how you didn't seek her approval, and that somehow made her respect you more. These new guys, they're nice, but they're eager, they're safe, they're predictable, and you, even in your silence, still feel more powerful. And now she's torn, because the same man she thought she could replace has become the standard she can't stop measuring others against. This is why they always circle back. Not because you changed, but because everything after you exposed how rare you actually were. You want to make this real, make her comparisons painful, then disappear into purpose. Don't monitor her. Don't stalk her page. Don't watch her stories. Instead, build, grow, invest in your body, your mind, your mission. Because while she's out trying to fill the void with empty validation, you're becoming unrecognizable, even to the man you used to be. And when that contrast becomes too much to ignore, when the men she's talking to now feel like hollow replacements, when even her best options feel like copies of a blueprint she never appreciated, that's when the comparisons turn into regret, real, bone-deep regret. But by then, you're already gone, not physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You've elevated, you've detached, and that's the lesson she wasn't ready to learn. You weren't replaceable. You were rare, and she only realized that after trying to find you in men who never stood a chance. Number 6. She didn't expect you to leave. She didn't expect you to leave because she thought you were loyal beyond reason. She thought she could mistreat you, ignore you, play games, and you'd still come back. That you'd wait around like you always have. That she could give you half her effort and still receive your full attention. She miscalculated, because the version of you she remembers was patient, predictable, always explaining, always apologizing, always waiting. But this version of you, the one who chose himself, she doesn't recognize him, and that terrifies her. Because now the rules have changed. The emotional leash is gone. She's no longer in control, and she has no idea what to do with that. She never expected a man like you to walk away without warning, to go silent without drama, to disappear without slamming the door. That kind of calm confidence is rare and threatening. It shatters her sense of control, because most men fold. They text, they chase, they beg, they try to talk it out, hoping for closure, hoping for clarity. But you gave her neither. You gave her distance, and not just physical space, but emotional detachment. You stopped asking where things went wrong. You stopped trying to prove your worth. And that silence, not in volume, but in intention, hit her harder than any argument ever could. She's replaying the moment you left in her head over and over, wondering what made you change, asking herself if you were pretending all along, if you even cared. Because when a woman doesn't expect you to leave, she creates a future in her mind where you always stay. And now that future is broken. Her backup plan is gone, her sense of security gone, and all she's left with is an empty space where your energy used to be. The worst part, she knows deep down that it's her fault. That her coldness, her indecision, her games, they didn't make her more powerful. They made her forgettable, replaceable. And now she's watching your story from a burner account, wondering if you're thinking about her. But you're not. You're busy building. You're no longer trapped in emotional limbo. You've shifted from reactive to proactive. You've learned that love without respect is not love, it's slavery. That loyalty to someone who doesn't value you is not strength, it's self-abandonment. And now she's the one waiting, watching, hoping. But the truth is, the man who left no longer exists. You've outgrown the version of yourself who tolerated the bare minimum, and now her only access to you is in memory. That's the power of unexpected distance. It doesn't just hurt her, it humbles her, and for the first time she realizes she wasn't the one who had you. You were the one who allowed her in. Never forget that. Number 7. Absence restores your power. The moment you withdraw your energy, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, something shifts in the atmosphere between you and her. something she's not ready for, because until now, she has only known the version of you that was constantly available, always reaching out, checking in, trying to fix things, trying to understand her, trying to be enough. And when you were in that place, you didn't realize how much power you were handing over, how every text, every call, every apology, every attempt to reconnect after her cold behavior or silence was essentially telling her one thing: that no matter what she does, you will still be there, waiting, ready to serve her emotional comfort even when she gave you none. And in doing so, you turned yourself into a man she didn't need to respect because you showed her that you didn't even respect yourself. But now that you've stepped back without warning, without fanfare, without chasing closure or clarity, you've sent a message louder than words could ever be. A message that says, I know who I am and I don't need your validation to exist. And that message doesn't just shake her, it unnerves her. Because she built her confidence on the assumption that she had you wrapped around her finger, that no matter how far she pushed you, you'd always come crawling back. But when you don't, when you choose silence over confrontation, evolution over explanation, you create a vacuum, not just a physical one, but an emotional one, where the power dynamic shifts completely, and she's now the one trying to figure things out, checking your profile, asking mutual friends about you, trying to piece together why the man who once made her feel invincible now acts like she no longer exists. And that absence, that space where you once were, it starts to echo louder than any speech, louder than any argument, louder than any romantic gesture. Because it's not just the absence of your presence, it's the absence of your approval, your attention, your access. And without realizing it, you've become a mirror she can't look away from. Not because you're trying to punish her, but because you've become rare, and rarity has value. And now the same woman who thought she had you on standby is scrambling for a response, checking if you still care, throwing out little bait to see if you'll bite. And the true test of your growth is when you don't, when you look at her message and feel nothing. When you remember the man you used to be and feel grateful that he died the moment you decided to walk away. Because real power is not found in dominating others or getting revenge. Real power is in restraint, in walking away without losing your dignity, in choosing your peace over her chaos, in building a life so full, so aligned, that even the idea of entertaining her again feels like a betrayal of your future self. And this is what most men don't understand. Power isn't taken, it's reclaimed the second you decide that your attention is a privilege, not a gift. And if she couldn't value it when she had it, then she doesn't get a second chance just because she finally realizes what she lost. Because by the time she sees it, you've already built a world where her presence no longer fits. And that world, forged in solitude, in discipline, in healing, becomes your new source of identity, where you are no longer defined by who wants you, but by who you choose to become. Number 8. Her fantasy gets interrupted. There's a version of you she created in her head, a version that stayed no matter how cold she got, no matter how many times she flaked, ignored your calls, kept you on read, flirted with other men in front of you, or used vague excuses to avoid accountability. She crafted a narrative where you were predictable, where your love was unconditional to the point of being disposable, and this fantasy that you would always be there gave her a sense of control, of power, of assurance that no matter how reckless she got, there'd be no consequences, no loss, no distance too wide for you to bridge with another apology or another offer to talk things out. And then, one day, you stopped. You didn't announce it. You didn't slam the door. You didn't write a paragraph explaining how she hurt you. You simply stopped showing up. And in that moment, her entire script broke. Her emotional movie hit a glitch, and now she's staring at a screen that no longer plays the role she assigned you, because for the first time, she's dealing with a man who doesn't need her to validate his worth, who doesn't beg to be understood, who doesn't crumble at the thought of her walking away. And that's not just unexpected, it's unacceptable in her world, because the fantasy where she holds the power, where she calls the shots, where she decides when you're worthy of her time, time, has collapsed under the weight of your silence and indifference. And now she's facing a reality she never prepared for, that she may have lost you for good, not because you hate her, but because you evolved beyond her. And the tragedy, for her, is realizing that the same qualities she dismissed in you, your consistency, your loyalty, your integrity, are the ones she can't seem to find in anyone else. And now every man she meets feels like a downgrade, not just because they're different, but because none of them offer the emotional safety, the honesty, the stillness you brought. And while she's busy trying to act like she's unfazed, posting stories, flirting online, pretending she's happier, deep down she knows she lost something real, something stable, and that realization haunts her, not in dramatic moments but in quiet ones. When no one's watching, when the noise stops, when the attention fades and she's left with the echo of your name in a room full of meaningless faces. And this is why the fantasy hurts more than the truth. Because in the truth, she could have blamed you, said you were toxic, said you were too much, said it wasn't the right time. But in the fantasy, you were perfect, until you stopped playing the role. And now she's realizing that the man she thought would always be there was actually the man she was never ready for. And the most powerful thing you can do in this moment is nothing, absolutely nothing. Don't check in. Don't reply to her guilt-laced messages. Don't explain your absence. Just continue walking, continue growing, continue becoming, because when her fantasy breaks, when her illusion dies, and she finally sees you not as the man she had, but as the one she can't reach anymore, that's when the lesson begins. Not for you, but for her. And the irony is, the more you grow into this new version of yourself, the less you even want her back, because now you see the truth she never could. That her fantasy wasn't about love, it was about control. And now that control is gone, replaced by your presence in your own life, in your purpose, in your discipline, and in that reality, there's no room left for someone who only wanted you when you were easy to keep. Number 9, you rebuild your value. You rebuild your value not when she comes back, not when she finally sees your worth, not when she texts you, "I miss you," after weeks of silence, but in the quiet, lonely moments when no one's watching, when your phone is dry, when your heart is cracked open and your mind is telling you to reach out and you don't, when you sit with the pain of rejection and transform it into discipline instead of distraction, when you stop defining your worth by how much someone else responds to you and start measuring it by how deeply you show up for yourself. That's when your value begins to rebuild, not in loud declarations or revenge glow-ups, but in the daily choices no one sees. Waking up early when you feel like giving up, pushing through your workout even when your body's screaming to quit, opening books that challenge your old ways of thinking, sitting in silence instead of numbing yourself with shallow entertainment, taking accountability for the ways you lost yourself in trying to please her, rewriting your goals with clarity, breaking them down into small, brutal, consistent steps that you follow through on even when your emotions are all over the place. That's value, and that value doesn't come from her approval or from anyone else's validation. It comes from the man you meet in the mirror when you've kept your promises to yourself long enough to build confidence from competence. Because confidence isn't built from compliments, it's forged from commitments. And the truth is, she didn't break you. You abandoned yourself in the pursuit of someone who never deserved to hold that kind of power over you in the first place. And now your mission is to stop waiting to be chosen and start becoming the kind of man who never needed to ask for permission to evolve. Because when you gave her your time, your energy, your vulnerability without boundaries, you were placing your self-worth in the hands of someone who wasn't even clear about her own. And when that collapsed, so did your identity. But now you get to rebuild, piece by piece, layer by layer, starting with your habits, starting with your body, your sleep, your discipline, starting with the words you speak to yourself when no one else is around, when you stop calling it heartbreak and start calling it opportunity, when you stop seeking closure from her and start finding clarity within yourself, when you stop fantasizing about who she could have been and start becoming who you were meant to be. That's where your power lives, not in her coming back, but in you not needing her to, not anymore, because now you understand that the version of you who tolerated the disrespect, who gave second chances to emotional inconsistency, who begged for connection instead of demanding alignment, that version had to die so this version could rise. And while she may come back trying to reconnect with the man she once knew, she'll find a stranger, stronger, colder, calmer, clearer, more grounded, more focused, more unavailable. Not because you hate her, but because you finally love yourself enough to protect your peace. Because when you rebuild your value, you stop being an option and start being the standard. And real value doesn't need to prove itself. It simply exists. It radiates in your presence, your pace, your patience, your lack of reaction, your purpose, your results, your silence that speaks volumes. And that's when the game flips. Not because you played it better, but because you stopped playing it altogether and chose to build your own rules. And the irony: the more value you rebuild within yourself, the less her return even matters, because now you have options, not just in dating, but in life, in purpose, in power, in peace. And that's the man no woman forgets, the one who walked away and turned his pain into purpose so loudly that his silence still echoes in her mind long after the texts stopped. Because your value isn't in her coming back. Your value is in the fact that you didn't need her to come back to become everything she couldn't handle the first time. Number 10. You choose you. You choose you when you stop chasing explanations from people who were never qualified to hold your heart. When you stop measuring your worth by who stays and start measuring it by who you refuse to chase. When you finally decide that your time, your energy, your peace, your attention are no longer negotiable, that you will no longer lower your standards to keep someone close who was never aligned with your mission in the first place. And choosing you doesn't mean isolation, it means liberation. It means waking up every day and no longer living for the potential of us, but for the reality of me. It means recognizing that the man who gave everything and got breadcrumbs in return is gone, replaced by someone who now protects his focus like his life depends on it. Because it does. Because when you were wrapped up in her potential, her mood swings, her attention shifts, her need for space, her mixed signals, you weren't living, you were waiting, pausing your progress, shrinking your dreams, numbing your instincts, all to keep someone close who only showed up when she felt like it. And now, as you begin choosing you, you feel the shift. You stop reaching for the phone, you stop scrolling to see if she watched your story, you stop checking if she's online, because now you're checking in with yourself, journaling your goals, eating meals with intention, saying no more often, choosing gym over guilt, peace over her presence, books over breadcrumbs, real friends over situationships. And as you do that, a new man is born. One who doesn't need a relationship to feel whole. One who doesn't need closure to move forward. One who doesn't need her to say, "I'm sorry," to forgive himself for ignoring the red flags he now sees so clearly. Because you choosing you is not about selfishness. It's about finally putting your life back into your own hands, refusing to be a passenger in a vehicle driven by her emotional inconsistency. And when she reaches out again, because she will, you now have the clarity to know whether that connection still serves the man you are becoming, not the one you were. And in most cases, you'll realize it doesn't, because now you see her for what she was. A mirror, reflecting back the parts of you that were insecure, people-pleasing, reactive. And now that mirror is shattered, and what stands in its place is a man who no longer seeks permission to rise, who no longer negotiates his standards for fleeting affection, who no longer waters himself down to fit inside spaces that once suffocated him. And this is the true evolution, not the moment she comes back, but the moment you no longer care if she does, because your happiness is no longer tied to her behavior. Your day is no longer ruined by her silence. Your worth is no longer dictated by her response time. And this inner peace, this unshakable center, is what makes you powerful beyond measure. Because now you're grounded in something she can't take from you: self-respect, purpose, alignment, and choosing you means letting go of the story you were sold, that you have to prove yourself worthy of love, that you have to earn attention, that being patient with her emotional games somehow makes you strong. No, real strength is walking away from what confuses you and walking toward what grows you. It's setting standards so high that only those willing to rise with you get access to your world. And that includes her, especially her, because she used to be the center of your life. And now she's just another chapter in your growth. And the more you choose you, the more you realize you never lost her. You lost yourself, and getting her back was never the goal. Getting yourself back was. And now that you have him, you're unstoppable. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped asking the wrong people for direction. And that clarity, that discipline, that fire, that's what will carry you into the next season of your life. One where love finds you not because you're chasing it, but because you're becoming the kind of man who is too focused on building his kingdom to notice who's watching from the sidelines. And one day, long after she realizes what she lost, you'll be too far ahead to even care. Not out of bitterness, but out of purpose, because you chose you. And that was always the right choice. And if you've made it this far, then deep down, you already know. No woman should have the power to break a man who knows himself. If you're tired of giving everything and getting breadcrumbs, tired of chasing closure from someone who was never honest in the first place, tired of feeling like you lost yourself while trying to be enough for someone who didn't even try, then it's time. Time to rebuild from the ground up. Time to stop bleeding energy into people who drain it. Time to get the Stoic blueprint. Drop that phrase, "I choose myself," in the comments right now if you're ready to become the man who never begs, never breaks, and never bends for temporary validation. Like the video, subscribe, because every time you do, it helps another man out there, a man like you, avoid years of emotional chaos and quiet regret. And if you want the actual blueprint, the raw step-by-step guide that shows you exactly how to reclaim your focus, build unshakable self-control, and turn emotional pain into long-term power. The Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men is linked right now in the comments. No games, just the truth, and the system that finally puts you back in control. This is your moment. Don't just watch. Transformation